romance readers, I am Liz Donatelli. Welcome to Reader Seeks Romance, the #1 romance novel talk show on YouTube. USA Today bestselling author Melanie Johnson joins me to discuss her rom-com, Too Wrong to Be Right. And Melanie and I play 2 truths and 1 lie. Enjoy, and be sure to like and subscribe. Welcome back to Reader Seeks Romance, Melanie.
Thank you. Thank you for having me back. I know last time I was here with my buddy Angelina, so It's kind of fun to have the floor to myself now.
Yes. Oh, we could really dig deep.
Oh, although a little scary, right? Because it's nice to have someone else when you can kind of volley it off to them. Yes.
Yes, I know. There's no hiding from me. So congratulations on the release of Too Wrong to Be Right.
Thank you.
I'd like to begin with an excerpt of a starred review that Too Wrong to Be Right received from Booklist, which is American Library Association's book review publication. Smartly deploying her flair for comic timing and considerable gift for witty banter, Johnson once again dazzles and delights readers with a perfectly executed rom-com featuring a delightfully quirky cast of characters that includes a hot cinnamon roll hero and her heroine with a totally relatable, messy personal life, as well as a cockatoo with a sailor's vocabulary and adorable hedgehog. What means more to you? The mention of the comic timing and witty banter, or the mention of the novel's animal sidekicks?
Well, I mean, on a personal level, I have to say my vanity was 100% stroked by, delightful, witty banter. So it's like I did not pay this person to write it, but man, I would have been happy to write. It was a wonderful review that came at a really nice time. But I do have to say, I fought so hard for the visibility of my quirky little characters, that the fact that they're getting love and noticed, and included in reviews is adorable. It's really fun. Somehow by accident, Quirky Animals has become a part of my brand, from last book Too Good to Be Real, with all of the corgis and the kleptomaniac seagull.
Yes, that's right.
To now with Jojo the hedgehog and Seamus the very salty cockatoo, who was kind of inspired by Effin Birds. I don't know if you know Effin Birds. It's an artist who takes kind of like these vintage kind of prints of birds and adds very salty commentary to them, usually involving not safe for work words. And I just cracked up with that. So, it was funny because I added Seamus and his salty vocabulary into the story. And then after the book was done and off to post-production, I watched the 2nd season of Only Murders in the Building. Have you?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I love that show. And that bird, that swearing bird, I was dying. Some people, it doesn't do it, but for me, I find it endlessly amusing.
Mm-hmm.
And if that humor is your humor, you love it. I've had people who just are like, Seamus is my jam. I mean, they just love him. They love his little personality. The book opens with Kat, our heroine. She kind of I call her an asshole magnet. She is constantly attracted to jerks. That's what she does. And so she's going through the sudden breakup with the latest jerk in the long line of jerks. And he proceeds to ditch her with his pet hedgehog. And how that happened and how it became a hedgehog, I honestly couldn't say. It's just one of those things where writers' brains are weird and things will just pop into my head.
In Too Wrong to Be Right, your romance protagonists are Kat, a florist who has dated a ton of a-holes but wants to find Mr. Right, and Mick, who is co-owner of his family's funeral home. What makes Kat and Mick right for each other, and what roadblocks do they encounter along their romance journey?
So the thing with Kat is she's kind of always led with her, vagina. She's very much someone who falls into lust very easily, and wants to change that to love quickly. Like she wants so much of all her friends. She was the one that really wanted that kind of romantic rom-com worthy happily ever after. She keeps thinking the next one's going to be it. The next one's going to be it. And obviously she's chasing after the wrong guys. She's pursuing the wrong things. So she's like, that's it. I'm done following my own instincts because clearly I have a problem. And so she's like, physical attraction is not what is going to lead me to the right person. So she kind of makes this list of things that she feels are important in a life partner, which is what she wants so badly, especially because her two best friends have found their, happily ever afters. They're, one's engaged, the other one's moving in with her boyfriend. So like they're moving on to the next step and she's desperate to keep up. I didn't say this is 100% logical or healthy, but I think it is really human. I think it is a very human fear. And you get caught up in it, and she's definitely caught up in it. So she's made this list, and of course the same night of the breakup is the night that she runs into Mick, and there is attraction off the bat, like no question that there's chemistry there. But for her, she's like, oh, no, lock that down. Like
Right.
I'm not going to follow that same pattern. Plus she's on the rebound, like she's gonna like break up with one guy and 2 hours later fall for another. So there's like two strikes immediately against Mick. And the poor guy hasn't done anything. Mick, when that one review you mentioned talked about him being a hot cinnamon roll, and he really is a cinnamon roll in the sense of being incredibly caring and empathetic. I mean, working in the funeral home industry, I think, is part of that. He's a middle child, so very sensitive to his siblings' needs, and kind of not sure how to take up his own space. He needs to figure that out, and so he has a hard time advocating for himself in terms of pushing for more with Kat. And when she friend zones him, very clearly, he's like, you know what? I'd rather have this than nothing. Like I'd rather, I want to, she being near her makes me happy. And, so yeah, I'll do whatever I got to do. So some may say that that's kind of too simpy, but Mick, he might be a bit of a simp, but he's my ode to Nick Miller from The New Girl.
Yes. Okay. Okay. I could see that. Totally.
His scruffiness, his awkwardness, his be bad to me and I'll just fall in love with you more.
Right. Okay. Now, so that's who you would cast, I would imagine, your dream casting for the movie adaptation.
And then there's a female comic, Ilsa, her last name, Schlesinger.
Oh, you Eliza Schlesinger?
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah.
Beautiful blonde, but snarky. That's my inspiration for Kat.
I'd like to talk a little bit about Kat and Mick's meet cute, which on the back cover description, it is referred to as a meat disaster. First question, was that your word, or was that your publisher who coined that phrase, meat disaster?
So I don't think I coined it, but it was definitely me, because even my editor, when I sent her like my idea for the blurb, she was like, oh my gosh, that's perfect. Did you just make that up? And I'm like, I think I've probably heard it somewhere before. But yes, it's the meat disaster.
Well, I have not heard that before. So I'm going to say from here on out, this is a phrase you coined. Okay.
I'll take it. Especially, again, like I'm sure there have been other people. I know people talk about it, because for me, I know some people can't stand the cringy, awkward meet cutes, but I love them.
You see, I happen to believe that a rom-com that begins at a funeral home, I believe that is just brilliant. And that is where all rom-coms should begin. What was the whole funeral appeal for you?
I knew who Kat was, and I knew what her job was because she was in the last book. She was a florist. Those things had been defined. So when I was thinking about, how Kat was going to come across her potential Mr. Right, I was like, well, what kinds of situations might a florist find herself in that would, be something that odd things could happen? And I thought, well, delivery to a funeral home, like that just kind of was something that, you know, you kind of like brainstorm, and that one just kind of, and as soon as I thought it, like the scene was just there. The scene of her it trying to get this boutonniere clipped on and him walking in, and it kind of just like it wrote itself from there. And I know that it's not typical for the florist to do that kind of thing, but yeah,
I
I
was going
know,
to
I'm
ask you.
aware, but for romance reasons, we had to come up with why she did that. And one, she cannot stand funeral homes. She has a personal issue with them that she's had since she was young, and she just doesn't want to be in there in the first place. She's like, I want to get in, I want to get out. And the instructions for this delivery were incredibly specific, as we know, because it was a
Yes.
bit of vengeance on the first widow's behalf, that she wanted that dang boutonniere pinned to that man's chest. So,
Yes.
you know, Kat shows up, no one's around. She's not gonna go be looking for anybody. She's like, I'm gonna get this job done and get out. So she's you know, trying to pin them, you know, and she does weddings. She sticks with
Yeah.
weddings.
Right.
The other people that take care of the funerals usually. So she's like eyes closed, trying to like pretend that the corpse is a groom stiff with nerves, you know. So of
Yeah.
course she's got her eyes shut while she's poking around in the casket when Mick walks in and is like, "What the hell? Like,
Right.
what are you doing? You know, because
Yeah.
you're not supposed to be up there. Like, nobody's supposed to touch the body, but the people, you know." So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. No, that all played really well in my mind and on the page. Did you reach out? Did you email funeral homes? We're like, hey, I'm an author. Can I ask you some questions? Did you just start crashing people's funerals? Which I think is another good idea for a book. But
luckily, there is so much available online. There's a couple of different YouTubers that and one of them, Caitlin Doty, I believe she's written 3 books on death and on how we handle death and face death. And I think the first one is "Will My Cat Eat My Eyeballs?" It's the first book.
oh, that's the best title ever.
And she really kind of dives into these uncomfortable questions and in a kind of snarky, humorous way. And then there's another YouTuber who's a mortician and a deserologist. That's who does the makeup. And also she does the embalming and all that. Cold Hands, I think, is the name of the YouTuber. And so, I mean, it's just like a ton of material that kind of goes in depth into the procedures and the process. And so, I mean, that was great. And then I'm actually reading a book right now called, I mean, this is after the fact, but it's like I've become so fascinated. Here I am reading, you know, but it's called All the Living and the Dead, and it is a fascinating look at, you know, how we deal with death and mourning, and the different ways that we approach it.
Who was your favorite supporting character to write?
I think my favorite was probably Kat's grandmother, her Babcha, because she is just such a little spitfire. And I actually based her off of my stepmother-in-law, my husband's stepmom, who we all call Basha. And sadly, she passed away last fall. So she didn't get to see the book come out, but we weren't able to spend a lot of time with her the past couple of years because of the C word. But the one time we were able to get together, like in the backyard, because she had cancer, so we had to be extra careful. So we got together in the backyard, you know, the girls, my daughters, and I, and we all got to hang out. And I was telling her I was writing this book, and the heroine is Polish, and the grandmother came over from Poland, which is, you know, was Basha. She'd come over from Poland. And Basha is the kind of person that would just tell you straight to your face, like all kinds of insulting things. Like she had no filter whatsoever. None. And even so, and so I kind of asked her a couple of different questions about the Polish language, and she was very helpful in those ways. And you know, it was kind of, you know, her background, and her daughter, my stepsister-in-law, who had gone to Polish school as a kid. But yeah, Babcha's saltiness and her kind of frankness and openness was very much, you know, it was fun to write, and because it helps the audience see another side of Kat as well, because of the caretaking that takes place and the love that Kat and her grandmother have, because her parents, there's just not a closeness there. And I don't dive into it too much in the book because I didn't feel it was central to the story, but it kind of sets up Kat's desperation for finding the one, for finding love, because it was missing in her life growing up, except
Right.
for Babcha, except for her grandma. So
Right.
those were really fun scenes to write. And I mean, my first book, to Getting Hot with a Scot, I had a very salty neighbor, old lady, that got cut from the story, and I was so
Oh.
upset about that. Um, it was just a thing where she just got cut, and I'm like, I've been wanting to write some salty grandmas ever since. So
Oh. Well, I'm glad you had the chance to do that.
so yeah, so we've got Babcha, and then we've got Nick's Irish grandmother, we've got
Mhm.
Gran, and getting to have the two of them in a scene together, that was fun.
All I'm going to say is cock cozy, and I'm going to let you fill in the
I was hoping
blanks.
you would ask because I have some visual aids.
Oh, get
I
out.
knew I wanted to do well. First of all, I didn't know if these things existed. So when Laura's making this thing, I'm like, does anyone make those? And sure enough, I look online in Etsy. There's a woman who lives in Illinois, and her shop is called the Home Hookin' Shop because they call themselves hookers, like the happy hooker. Because if you're
Yes.
hooking for crochet, you
Oh,
hook. And so yeah, so
yes.
I'm like, oh my gosh, this lady's hilarious. So I emailed her and I'm like, I'm gonna put in an order for like 10 of these. And she's like, what? And she had the rainbow one already. And I'm like, because I've written that in my book, that Laura was making a
Yes.
rainbow one. And
Yeah.
I'm like, so yeah, I'm like, so I'm gonna do giveaways for these. I'm gonna do a couple of giveaways because I just think they're hilarious. I mean, I know my 14-year-old, she's like, Mom, what is up with these penises? You can put like a coffee cup in here, or I have
Yeah.
like a soda can in here right now. And then there's a little button, and you just unbutton it, and that's the top. So I'm gonna unbutton it for you here. And again, like the animals, I did not set out to like start both books with the penis joke, but that's just kind of what happened. The first book, there's the whole,
Yeah.
reference to she gets a dick pic and she's like, it looks like, the shrimp that I'm currently eating.
Yes, that's
Was
right. The last one too began with,
the
yeah.
opening line. So I felt like I do have this kind of like, I'm drawn to parallels, I'm drawn to bookending things. I do
Yeah.
like that. And so this is being the second book that, in this grouping, I was kind of like, I'm like, I know it's silly, but I want to open with another dick joke.
No, it works.
People who read it, if they think that first line's hilarious, then they love the book. It's kind of a I
Oh.
don't know what the right term is, like that test that tells you that you're in or you're out. And if you like, why is there a crocheted penis lying on the floor, being the first line of the book,
Yeah.
then you're gonna have fun.
So kind of a Melanie Johnson litmus test.
That's the word I was trying to think of, litmus test. Yes.
Yeah.
And again, like, and my oldest, who's in college, who's, her friends are reading my books, and it's just like, okay, so this book also starts with a penis joke. I'm like, yes. I'm like, but not all of them do, just these two. I'm gonna move on from that now. Don't worry.
No, don't.
I can't move on from the animals though. The book I'm currently working
Mhm.
on, the series I'm currently working on, also includes some very quirky animals. We'll
Well,
see.
I hope one of them is a pig.
No, the animal in this one, there is a geriatric one-eyed bat. So
Is it a pet or is it just a neighborhood
he's a
animal?
woman. She has a menagerie of misfit animals. So she kind of collects them and takes care of them. It's like a rehab center type of thing. And Basil, the one-eyed bat, is one of her favorites.
But you still need to have a pig.
Okay, all right. I'll have to think about that some more.
And I think the pig should be called Liz. As an ode to me, I'll know. I'll know.
You know what? If I put a pig in a book, I will make it. I will make sure it'll be. I can't do it in the next one because the heroine's name is Lizzie. So
Oh, wow. Whatever. I learned from your 2019 interview on Smart Podcast Trashy Books, I learned that you were a drama teacher and founded a children's theater in Chicago. It made sense to me because your dialogue and how you write the movement of the characters in each scene, everything is complementary, it's fluid, it's natural, it all fits, it makes sense, and it's very vivid. It evokes a very vivid imagery of what's going on. You could place where everyone is. How has your theatrical training helped you to develop your romance writing craft?
That's a really good question. And I often have given credit to my theatrical background. It's always hard to compliment yourself, but I think if I have a strong writing skill, it's in dialogue. And I think my writing of dialogue, that ability comes from being an actress, having to learn lines, always working. My entrance into story is through dialogue. And then, writing scripts and of my own, and which is all kind of, again, dialogue and action focused, which leaves my weak spot very often to be plot or pacing. Those are the things that I struggle with the most. So developing characters, developing three-dimensional characters, the blocking of a scene, the movement, like you said, those things come fairly easily. It's always interesting to me because some writers will say, I picture everything in my head, which is like how I am. And then other writers are like, I don't understand that. So, people work in different ways. But for me, it is all visual. So I'm kind of like sitting in a seat, in the audience, taking notes, watching what they're doing on the stage, so to speak, when it comes to that kind of thing. So that's very much, like you said, a theatrical background and having that kind of understanding of how dialogue and movement work together in a scene.
I appreciate that.
Thanks. Yeah, no, that was a very good insight. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I also read up on your website. You have 100 things about you that you list. And I noticed that fact 92 stated, I am not a good liar. So I've decided to put you to the test by playing 2 truths and 1 lie.
Okay. So I was a hooker in college. I worked for Victoria's Secret, but only for one day. In my early 20s, or actually mid-20s, when I was part of a mom's group, I was asked to donate some eggs for in vitro fertilization because they were looking for a redheaded Jewish woman to donate eggs.
The hooker one, I think, is thrown in there to trick me because, as you mentioned earlier, a hooker can also be someone who crochets. The egg thing could have happened, but would you mention it so casually like that? Like if you're doing it casually because you it's a lie and you have no actual emotion connected to it. And the other one was working at Victoria's Secret for a day. You didn't say if you quit though, or if you were let go. Like maybe you were let go after a day. That's believable. You know what? I'm going to say that though sometimes the very detailed ones are the lie. I'm going to say you did not work at Victoria's Secret.
I did.
You did. So the lie was the egg.
So the egg one, I don't know if I fudge on this because I was asked to donate because a woman in my mom's group was looking for a donor specifically with red hair of Jewish descent. I just did not, at the time I was not ready to go through the process of, it's a very intense process to donate your eggs. It's physically demanding and I just wasn't in a place where I could feel like, I'm going to do that. So I did not do it. We're almost there where you're like, when you provide that much detail, it could be the lie.
Well, Melanie, you are a delight. Thank you so much for taking time to join me here on Reader Seeks Romance.
Thanks for having me.